Hi, Steve.
Hey, Will.
We're back again.
We are back again for episode 2. This time we are tackling the not deer.
And once again, we don't have a campfire.
One day. Yeah, we if law school works out, then maybe I can afford a few logs for a campfire. We'll see.
So what you're hearing is I'm going to do this full time, and Steven's going to be a lawyer and a podcaster, and he's going to pay for me to provide for my family. Thanks, Steve.
Oh man, this is a government dependency. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, before we get into the not deer, how you doing, Will?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Haven't you see any deer while driving around lately?
Well, my truck got totaled by a deer.
Yeah. Very sad incident, for sure.
Painful memories, Steve.
Well, anyway, at the risk of bringing up any more sore subjects, so, I think, really for this episode, we'll get right into it. I think I know what a deer is. Do you know what a deer is, Will?
Yeah, Steve.
Yeah?
I know what a deer is.
Yeah, you look in the...
freaking truck.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, well, actually, why don't we digress for just a second? Why don't you tell us about your incident?
You want me? Okay, I thought we could wait until the not deer and be like, oh, it was a not deer that hit my truck. But if you want me to tell it now, I can't tell it now.
Oh, we could, yeah.
Okay.
We can speculate on whether it was a not deer.
Yeah. So me and my wife, okay, we live out in the country, as you can tell, because we're filming in my barn. Okay, actually, it's not my barn. We went from my grandfather's, so it's my grandfather's barn. Anyways, so, we live out in the country, so we got, deer that come around, and they, mess with our flower beds or whatever. My wife and I, we were going to dinner for one of my friends, okay? And we were leaving, we're getting out of town, and we live, on a long dirt road. It's a private dirt road. And as soon as, we get to the main road, and I turn off of our driveway, because our driveway's not too long, it's probably about a mile. Probably not even a mile. Anyway, so we get to the end of the driveway, and I'm pulling on the main road, and I'm my truck's got a V8, so it's getting on up there to 50 miles an hour. That's probably what I was going. That's what I finally got up to. Couldn't even get a couple feet down the road before the lady in the other lane, who was probably flying 70 miles an hour, hit this deer. And you can imagine that if she hits it at 70 miles an hour, that deer's going to fly at 70 plus miles an hour. So I'm going 50, and it hits the truck, right? I'm on the phone with my brother, and I tell him, hey, I hung up the phone on him. I'm going, listen, I just hit a deer. Hung up, got out, went and checked on the other person, and I didn't even see my truck yet. And when I got to my truck, I was pretty crushed because it looked bad. And I had, guts strewn along the side. It was bad looking, and yeah, what were you going to say?
Yeah, but it was a deer nonetheless, right? Maybe so.
Yeah. It was a deer.
Sorry for your truck, by the way. A lot of nice memories in that truck.
Oh yeah. And so anyway, so we get the truck, we call the police come out there, they do all their stuff, they do their investigation stuff, and we were hoping the truck wouldn't be too much of money to cost to fix it, and really wasn't hoping they'd total it, but got the call saying that they decided to total the truck, and I got $9,000 back for it, and the good news is that I'm getting my other grandfather, who passed away recently, I'm getting his truck. So it's kind of like you're trading one sentimental thing for another sentimental thing. And so hopefully, the good news is that his truck isn't going to cost too much to fix it up, to get it running again, which works out. That means that me and Maddie, my wife, we can save some money. So it kind of worked out, but in all sadness, there's a lot of good memories in that truck.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, good, yeah. I bring that story up because we'll kind of get into it a little bit later, but yeah, this is the not deer episode. In celebration, I wore my deer socks. They are not deer socks, but
how long have you had those socks for? Did you just buy them just now for this episode?
I bought them for this episode.
Steve, no.
I was shopping a couple of weeks ago, and I saw these deer socks. I was like, hey, we're doing a not deer episode. What if I got some deer socks? Sadly, they were not deer socks. I couldn't find those, but anyway.
Well, hey, listen, it is just the head, so there's no telling what the body could be doing.
Oh, well,
it could be, pulling off a not deer move on us.
So, anyway, if you've been listening to this podcast for the last, 5-6 minutes and hearing just us ramble on, you're probably wondering what the heck is a knot deer, and
Yeah, what is a knot deer, Steve? Tell me what a knot deer is.
I love and hate the name because on one sense the term knot deer shows it's not a deer.
Right.
On the second thing, I kind of hate this name because it tells you almost nothing because here's the thing, Will, you're not a deer.
Right. I'm a person. You're not a deer.
Yeah, I'm not a deer.
This mug is not a deer.
Right.
This microphone is not a deer.
Yeah.
So what is a knot deer? What makes a knot deer not a mug?
Right. Yeah, there's lots of things that are not deer, and so I hate the name knot deer because it's just like, well, what does this tell us about this cryptid, this creature? So I'll ask you. I'll start with this. So the knot deer has been seen in Appalachia. It's been seen in Virginia, Pennsylvania, and it's also been seen right here in our home state, Georgia.
Yeah, we'll get to our experience later.
We will. So, if you're on the eastern seaboard of the United States, maybe you've seen.
By eastern seaboard, you literally just mean the Appalachians.
Well, yeah, you're not going to see this thing in New York, at least.
Ain't going to see it in the Rockies. Only here in the Appalachians.
Right. But yeah, I'll ask the viewers this: have you ever been driving and you kind of see some running on the side of the road and you see a deer, or at least what you think is a deer, and then you look a little bit closer and something's kind of different. Have you ever? I don't know.
Well, there was one time, Steve.
Well, yeah, I mean, okay, we'll get into that, but like, what are some things, Will, that makes a knot deer different? I'll say this first thing. You kind of look at it and it's a little bit too big. There's deer being the size you would think a deer is, and then you have deer that look like 3 times that size. But
so like a big buck, but not a big buck.
Right, but it's a deer, but it's as big as like a buck or a moose, like.
As big as a moose. Ooh, that's a big deer.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes you look at it and some other things are off, like its legs are backwards. Like it's.
What the hell?
Its knees are
backwards looking
its
legs.
knees are backwards, and I'll read a few Reddit stories a little bit later in the podcast, but some of the people that described the knot deer said it looked like a deer, but something was always off. Maybe instead of having deer eyes, it had like human eyes.
Deer knees bent back.
Knees bent backward.
Weird looking legs. Mom spaghetti.
Right. Yeah. Instead of hooves, it has what looks like claws or talons or even human hands.
Bro, this sounds like some dude in like a costume or something. And it's like some dude running around, like when you're like, he's got hands like a human, he's got eyes. All I could picture like is some dude in like a furry suit, running around in the woods, like, hey, look at me, I'm the knot deer.
Jared, if you're watching this, the furry jokes will be coming back.
Jared. So
Jared's a friend of ours.
Listen, I'm gonna give you like a little breakdown. So right now, our camera guy is Paul. We love Paul. Paul's a great guy. And so Paul is kind of like in charge of our camera, audio.
I think
stuff.
Paul's about to walk in right now, actually.
Oh, he is.
Yeah.
Look at him. Up, here comes Paul.
Yeah, there goes our hero.
Anyways, yeah. So Paul.
But as you're saying with the knot deer.
Guy. So Paul's our camera guy, okay? And if you're wondering who Jared is, Jared probably will end up becoming like our audio technician guy. Because listen, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Steven and I cannot do a podcast by ourselves to save our lives. Our first episode almost didn't even happen because. Like, I was using the wife's camera, and we didn't have Paul with us, and the camera didn't record, and I literally was like, "What are we gonna do?" And I said, "Okay, bat signal or the Paul signal, put it in there. Paul, we need you. Holding out for a hero. The fiery steed. And we needed Paul, and so Paul came to our rescue, and we're like, listen, Paul, like, I really do, like, listen, if this podcast works out and we can hire some people to work for us, I definitely want to hire Paul, I definitely want to hire Jared, I want these people working for us.
He's a first draft pick for sure, yeah, first round draft pick. But we're grateful for Paul, we're grateful for Jared if we get him on the team too. But I digress. So yeah, as I was saying, not deer. It looks like a deer, but it's not. It sounds really to me similar to kind of like when I first heard of the not deer when you were telling me about it. It sounded really similar to like the skinwalkers, you know.
Yeah, which by the way, that will be an episode in the future is skinwalkers, because there are definitely those are the skinwalker and the wendigo are definitely two big things that I want to cover at some point. Okay, but yeah, so as Steven just said, I'm the one who got him on this whole trail, and let me tell you, I shouldn't have done it because every day of my life now has become miserable because all I hear from Steven is that the not deer, the not deer. Let me tell you, okay, it's funny, but I shouldn't have said it.
If you can't tell, I really like not deers. I am so intrigued by this topic because I see deer all the time. I grew up, you know, in my backyard. I'd look outside and I'd see a deer, and so the thought of me looking outside and seeing something that I think's a deer, but it's not a deer, is just
like stands up on two legs and just like looks at you and just shakes his head.
Yeah, I feel like if a not deer saw me, I don't think he would want to eat me like maybe some of the other ones do. I think he'd just be so shocked and annoyed that somebody loves the not deer so much that he would do exactly what you just said.
This not deer is gonna be like, he's gonna be sitting there looking in Steven's window like, I'm gonna eat this little Indian boy, and then Steven's just in there like he's got like posters of him. He sees him. He's got like a T-shirt that says "I love the not deer," and Steven's like, "I love you, not deer. I'm your biggest fan." Like acting like a groupie for a band, and the deer's gonna be like, "This kid ain't worth it, man. I'm just dipping out of here. Forget this."
Hey, can't disappoint it more than disappointing my parents by getting a B in math. So
Is that supposed to be like an Asian joke?
that's an Indian joke. Shout out to my Asian Indians that were told they needed to get all A's, but
Or they get their ass beat.
yes, we do. So
Like the Indians from last episode.
So yeah, do not get a B if you are in my culture. But anyway, so yeah, not deer. Well, what do you think? Do you think that the people that have seen this thing are crazy? Do you think that there's something to it? I want to hear kind of some of your early theories and thoughts.
So my theory is like I've done a little bit of research about the not deer. Like I remember hearing about this kind of like growing up a little bit. You know, hearing about this creature called the not deer, and before, you know, like Steven did with Roanoke, and like how we kind of do with some of these other episodes is like we'll do our own kind of research beforehand. And so my research goes before we even thought of the podcast, before we even did this kind of job, and you know started doing this. And from what I've read from the not deer, is a lot of theories is that it could be a species related to deer, but it couldn't be. It probably isn't a monster at all. It's probably some unidentified animal that we've never encountered before. That's probably deep in the Appalachians. And I mean, if you think about the Appalachians, it's probably gonna be hard for you to find every animal in the Appalachians and identify them, because if it looks like a deer but it's not a deer, you know, it really could be misidentified as it's a regular deer, and then it stands up and you're like, oh, the not deer, you know. And so I think it could be like a species of deer maybe that like just we haven't really learned about.
Yeah, I hear you. A lot of people seem skeptical of the not deer because they said, how do you know it's just not a deer that is acting weirdly? You know, like it has rabies and it's just like prancing around. Because typically when you, and I'll read a couple of the Reddit stories in a second, but it's one of those things where deer typically when you see them, they're scared. Mm-hmm. They don't like humans. They'll run away, or if you're coming at them in your truck, they're like a deer in the headlights. But yeah, the thing with the not deers is when people have seen them, they don't run away. They're not scared. Actually, a lot of times the deer's just kind of looking at you, like angrily, or if it's not angry, it's staring at you and it's like acknowledging your presence.
Well, that one deer that I hit with the truck had no time to acknowledge my presence. Dude saw a whimper and that was it.
That's it. So, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and read a couple of stories of just the not deer, because really, unlike some of the other cryptids we talk about, there's not really a clear first sighting. There's not really a whole lot of lore about it. Most of what we know about the not deer comes from people's stories. Mm-hmm. A lot of them on Reddit. The not deer was trending on TikTok a couple years ago, so a lot of you might have seen the the not deer TikTok videos. And so we'll leave it up to the viewer's discretion of whether people are just being crazy or whether some of these stories are legitimate or not. But yeah, I will read kind of just a couple of the Reddit stories, and then we'll this will be a shorter podcast today, but we'll kind of end with Will's personal story and thoughts of
oh boy,
possibly of maybe a not deer encounter.
I want to make sure that we're on the same topic about which not deer experience we're thinking about. Like, are you thinking
I think we're talking about the same one.
Thing I'm thinking.
I think we're talking about the same one.
Are we on the same wave flow here?
I think so. I'm gonna read these two stories and then we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I think we're on the same flow because here's the thing: the story that I'm thinking about in my head is the one that we both encountered.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. So, okay, cool. I got a couple of Reddit stories to look at because again, like I said, most of the not deer lore comes from people's stories. Unlike Bigfoot, or unlike some of the other cryptids you hear about, like in a story where there's like a first sighting, we don't really truly have that with the not deer. But nonetheless, you do have a lot of stories. So
yeah. And by the way, guys, I'm gonna let you know. I know that you guys really like that classified document thing. Don't worry, we're gonna get Steven some classified documents. Don't worry, he'll be in the same boat as me.
Oh yeah. So okay, so here we go. I got this first story here. This let's see. The author did not give a name. But okay, all right. Oh, let's see. It's taking a second to load. Oh, deer person's coming up. Deer woman's coming up.
This is the reason why we print things out beforehand.
Oh yeah, no,
Steven is going to learn his lesson.
I will learn my lesson. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. All right. I grew up in rural Pennsylvania. My parents had always warned me about being careful in the woods and about not spending too much time there lest I, get hurt or something like that. I usually wouldn't listen to them. I found the woods quite peaceful, especially late into the night. However, one night when I was in 7th grade, my perception of the woods changed forever. Me and a friend went out into the woods around 3 a.m. We set up a fire and we were roasting marshmallows, talking about life, and just being generally rebellious. Mom, I hope you don't see this because I really, I'd like to let you know I don't go into the woods at 3 a.m. anymore. But as me and my friend were sharing life, we started to hear a soft brushing behind the trees. At first we thought that maybe it was a rabbit or a squirrel, when all of a sudden my friend saw 2 glowing blue eyes. This wasn't unusual. We had run into several coyotes over the years, and most of the time we would throw a stick at it and it would run away. But this time, my friend, when he threw a stick, the creature did not move or run away, but stayed, the eyes staying fixated on us. At this point, I started to get really nervous. Again, as I said earlier, coyotes usually run away, but this particular creature stayed. As we looked a little bit closer, we saw that this was not a coyote. It was something much larger. At first I thought, could this be a deer? The shape was that of a deer, but my friend noted that it was much, much larger, about 3 times the size of what you typically would think a deer looks like. As I looked a little bit closer, I started to see, instead of what were hooves, what started to look like really sharp talons. At this point, me and my friend started to freak out. I ran fast back to my house as fast as I could. My friend looked back, but all of a sudden, we couldn't see the creature anymore. To this day, I can't explain what exactly I saw that day, but all I can say is, it definitely was not a deer.
Alright, first off, listen. You want to know what their first mistake was?
What was that?
Going into the freaking woods at 3 a.m. Of course, I can't say much since, when we used to have fun campfires here at the farm, we didn't go into the woods until like 12, 11. We never stayed out past 2. So, first off, for your first mistake, 3 a.m., okay? Second off, the blue eyes, man. The blue eyes. That's what throws you off there. It's like the blue eyes.
Yeah, I don't know any deers that have blue eyes.
Well, they probably could have, well, first off, if it was like blue eyes, it wouldn't be, okay, whatever. but they're glowing. That's the other thing that throws you off too, is that they're glowing blue eyes, and it like I know like most animals like a raccoon or even if it wasn't a raccoon like a coyote like they said like coyotes usually don't attack humans or most animals that are in the wild are scared of humans, and so they'll kind of run away to throw something at them or whatever, but just for to stand there and just kind of keep staring, like that's what freaks me out about it.
Yeah, it's almost like I want to believe that this user saw something else but I don't know any animal where you throw a stick at it and it just stays there. Because I mean, I've seen my fair share of coyotes over the years, and yeah, you throw something at it, it runs away.
I mean that again, like I said, that freaks me out because it's like for one thing, it'd be like I mean, it's not too scary because like it didn't chase after him or anything, but I think it is kind of scary that it like was there and then they ran and then they looked behind him and it's gone, just poof. Like this big like probably the size of a moose or larger, is standing there with talons on its hands, glowing blue eyes. Like this thing's big enough. You think they would hear something if it ran,
Yeah, for sure. I wonder how much of it being 3 a.m. might have thrown them off, or maybe not. But I don't know. They definitely saw something that night, and they did say it was not a deer. So I got one last story, and then I'll let Will share his personal experience. So the last one was from Pennsylvania. This one is from Virginia. So me and my wife were traveling through Virginia to visit a friend of ours. At about 7:50 p.m. on our drive back, we were driving to a very dark part of the woods. As we were driving, my wife started to notice a creature running alongside our vehicle. My wife at first thought it was a deer, but as we looked closer, it was moving very, very fast. I'm not exactly sure how fast a deer runs, but I'm pretty sure that a deer is not able to keep up with a car driving at 50 miles per hour. At first I thought maybe I was just seeing things, but after a couple of minutes we looked again, and the creature was still keeping up with us. I started to drive a little faster. Still, me and my wife saw the creature. At this point we start to get very, very fearful, and not knowing what else much to do, I suddenly stopped the car. My wife says, "What am I doing?" And I can't explain it, but I felt a weird, peaceful sensation that I need to sit here for a second and really look at that thing. As my wife is freaking out, I look over and take a closer look at the creature. The creature now has stopped running alongside us and is just standing there. It was at least 10 feet tall, but what was strange is it wasn't alone. At its feet was a dead raccoon. But not only something was wrong with the raccoon was as well. The raccoon was as big as a very large dog. I can't explain why I noticed that detail of it, but he's also dead. As I looked at the deer, I saw around its neck what looked like seams. And near the middle of its chest, it looked like the seams were coming apart. And as I took a look even closer, I saw what looked like a pair of eyes looking behind those seams. At that point, I snapped out of whatever trance I was in, and I hit the floor. My wife looked back, and we could no longer see the creature. To this day, we still cannot explain what had happened, but I felt like we needed to share this story.
Oh boy. Oh man, a lot to digest here with this one, I feel like, because like the first one, and from what we know about the not deer, it's always like, it's this deer that looks like a deer, but it usually stands up on two legs, or it's got talons, or it's got, something like that. But this one, that kind of freaks me out a little bit, because it's like, not only did this thing stand up and was like, this big looking deer, it looked like it was like sewed together. And it ran faster than a normal one. But not only that, but the raccoon too. That was a big raccoon.
Yeah, I almost wonder, and that's why I know this isn't the Skinwalker episode, but I almost wonder how related the not deer is to the skinwalker, or if it might just be a skinwalker but appearing as a deer. But yeah, I felt like that raccoon was unique because we're talking about not deers, but it's almost like you have a not raccoon in that one. Yeah, that speed was insane. I do not know how fast deer run, but I don't think it's keeping up with a car that's going 60 miles per hour at all.
No, from what I know, I think deer can only really reach about maybe 20 miles an hour if that's the max. Like I know it's between like 10 and 20, somewhere around there. And so like that's what really, like you said, freaks me out because it's like this thing was keeping up with a car going freaking 60 miles an hour down the damn road, you know. And then like you said, the raccoon, like man, what are we fixing to have? Like
it was a weird detail, but yeah, it's just like if it could kill that thing, imagine what else it could potentially attack.
I'm telling you what, Steve. You know what? After hearing about that raccoon, I think you and I, if the podcast doesn't work out, we go out in the wild, we find the not deer, we find the not raccoon, we find the not elephant, we find all these not animals, and we make the not zoo.
There we go, our next business venture. Okay, but yeah, that's the not deer. You can go up and look up stories on Reddit and other places too. I'm sure you'll find similar stuff. But we'll wrap up this podcast episode with our own personal experience. So I'll let Will tell the story. And we'll let you know what we. And actually, this will probably be the only cryptid that we've actually had a personal experience with. Maybe had a personal experience.
Well, right now, at least.
Right. Well, yeah. For right now, we'll see. So, Will, why don't you go ahead and wrap us up here with this story?
Well, first off, like Steve was saying, our first experience, possibly, because I will say this is like a little teaser. If this podcast works out, I think I do want us to venture into other avenues besides podcasting, like maybe me and you hunt down these cryptids. But yeah, so going away from that and going back towards our topic for today, the not deer. Okay, so Stephen and I, there's this road in our town that's haunted, and I think we went out to that road, or we were driving, for some reason we were on these backcountry roads on the other side of the county, and we were driving back, and this herd of deer had kind of like ran in front of the vehicle, and so we're like, okay, it's just a herd of deer, whatever. And we slow down because we don't want to hit the deer, and we notice along the fence line, it looks like this deer is standing on its two legs. Okay, we didn't see any talons or anything. We just saw this deer was just standing straight up, and like Steven's like over here freaking out in the passenger seat. It's the not deer! It's the not deer! It's the not deer! And I'm like, come on, it can't be the not deer. I'm actually starting to like panic a little bit because I'm thinking, okay, maybe Steven's right. What if this is the not deer? Unfortunately, though, we debunked it as not being the not deer. So it was not the not deer. It was a plain old deer, and he was jumping a fence and got stuck. So his hands were like on the fence, and he would look like he was standing, but he wasn't standing.
He wasn't, yeah.
He was trying to jump.
So that was our first accidental encounter. Maybe of course, it was not a not deer. I will say these two stories didn't tell it, but a lot of the stories of the not deer we found, the not deer usually is with other deer, and all the other deer are normal, but the not deer is not. So. But I digress. Go ahead and Will, and bring us to the other ones.
Well, wait, what other ones? What are you talking about? What?
Was that?
That was the only encounter I remember. Unless you.
Didn't we see one?
Unless you're thinking of something else.
Didn't we see one when we were driving to Savannah?
I think so, but I think. It was
oh no! Wait! Oh no! You're right. Yeah, that one was debunked. I'm thinking. Yeah, I was just freaked out that night, so... Okay, no, yeah.
Steven, like, let me tell you, okay? You can only think Steven anything scary, and he's gonna freak.
I'm not a late night person, and I don't know, how late was it when we went to Savannah?
Oh, Lord, it was probably like... I mean, we were probably getting back, it was probably about 12 a.m. by the time we were starting
probably,
past that area.
Yeah, but anyway, we are in Georgia. The not deer has been sighted in Georgia many times.
And it definitely was not us who saw it.
Yeah, so, if we ever do encounter one in the future, we will make a not deer part 2 episode, but I think that about does it for this episode. So yeah, people watching this on YouTube or wherever else, if you have a personal not deer story, feel free to share it in the comments. But I think that'll do it.
I'm gonna go off what Steve was just saying. One of our plans, for right now, we're kind of growing a little bit, but my plan is hopefully by episode 10, that, or at least when we start recording these on a weekly basis, because there are going to be times where we're recording episodes back to back, just because, you know, Steven and I live hours apart, and so it's kind of hard for us to get close to each other to film. But my plan is that at least whenever we're filming these episodes on a weekly basis soon, my plan with that is that I will announce what we're going to be. If we're going to be talking about a cryptid the next week, I'll let you guys know. Because, like I told Steven, my goal for this podcast and this whole thing is I want it to not just be us doing it. I don't want it to just be Paul and Steven, or Paul and Jared. If we get Jared on board, I want our fans to be involved. And, you know, like when we get to the Skinwalker, you know, I will create an email to where people can send us in their stories and everything, or, you know, that kind of thing. And if you have a story, if you counter, like if I say, okay, next week we're doing the Skinwalker, and I tell you guys that, I will have an email link for you guys to email us your story of a Skinwalker encounter, and you might be featured in the next episode if you want us to. Because that's the thing, is I feel like later on, when we're able to do this more on a weekly basis, I want to include y'all's cryptid stories, because I want this thing to feel more personal. Because like you can go on Reddit, find a story. It could be true, it could not be true. It could be somebody making up a story. But I feel like with you guys, if you guys had an actual encounter, hearing y'all's story is going to make it way more real for us, and it's going to be great to be able to interact with our fans that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of exciting stuff coming up, but I think that'll do it for this podcast. So thank you guys for tuning in, and join us next time for Will as he talks about the
a cult. We're going in a cult.
We're going into cults.
We're joining a cult.
Whoa. Speak for yourself, man.
All right. So watch out for the not deer, and
like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we will see you next time.
Yeah, make sure you share us, okay? Or the not deer will get you. Bye, guys.